So Palantir, I mean, sheesh, look at the landslide of the stock chart. I mean, just look at that. Absolutely brutal. I think Palantir has to be one of the main stocks that got beaten down extremely hard in this market dip. But does this pose an opportunity? Or is this the beginning and there's more downside to go? In this video, I hope to answer that question. Now, I said hope, not will, because we are predicting. That being said, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have no crystal ball to tell you what the stock price is going to be tomorrow, next week, next month. But predicting on sales and profits, we can have an idea what the stock price could be by 2030. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. So again, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just some guy on YouTube that loves predicting stocks and companies and investing in general. Do your DD. There's always more research to do before going all in into a stock like I am with Tesla. But that being said, man, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get down to the prediction video, man. It's an updated one, by the way. So if you guys haven't seen the first one, check it out. You'll learn a lot more about Palantir in the first version. So go check that out first, then come here to see the update. Alrighty, make sure you guys hide your popcorn or whatever because this is gonna get juicy and interesting. So let's go. So this is the stock chart that I use to predict all my long-term stocks. It's very simplified, straight to the point, and honestly, it's quite reliable. But it doesn't mean this will become true. It's just an idea that gives me that if they do these amount of sales and revenue and net income with a given PE of this, we could get this stock price at that time. That's all. It's just a prediction. But if you're a new viewer of this channel, well, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to quickly and briefly go over the stock chart so you guys know what's going on. We get the total revenue, the net income, shares outstanding, price to sales ratio. This is very important because at the moment, Palantir is not making any money. They're negative in net income. So obviously a PE ratio doesn't really work or apply to Palantir at the moment. It only works and applies to Palantir once they have some net income in. Then we got EPS and the predicted PE ratio, which obviously once it becomes profitable, we have to use PE ratios because price to sales ratio won't really work as well. And obviously we got the stock price and the market cap. So very easy to understand, straight to the point. Honestly, this is all you need to know when you want to see if a stock is worth buying or not. So I hope this chart makes sense. Anywho, moving on now, we got 2020 and 2021 that's already been finished. We can see in 2020, the stock price was at 28 bucks per share, market cap of almost 50 billion. Then in 2021, it shot up to almost 71 billion in market cap, which was absolutely crazy. And with a peak price almost at 35 bucks, I think it went up to 38, I think, at one point. But 35 bucks was like the average in 2021. But then what happened? Why is the stock price at 9 bucks right now? What went down? What happened? Well, let's find out what happened. And let me show you what happens to companies that are extremely speculative and they don't have a net income. These companies easily, doesn't matter how good or popular or strong they are, if they're a company that doesn't have a good or solid net income, they will be first to get crushed in a market environment like now with interest rates going up and a war going on and inflation and all these things. In this environment, first companies that would really get hurt are the ones that don't have any net income because people run and they put their money in safe havens and safe places. I mean, a good example is PayPal. I mean, PayPal, look how 80% down from its all-time high and they make money, which is honestly such a stupid, I mean, such a strong company and such a strong future. It's just ridiculous how low it went. Honestly, that's an opportunity if you guys want. I even made a price prediction update on that. It's absolutely ridiculous. But back to Palantir, from 35 bucks per share to 9 bucks. What the heck is going on? So let's go deep in and let's see what's up. And let's see what the price could be by the end of the year. So the first thing we gotta figure out is the total revenue and net income forecasts. Now the best place that I found was simply Wall Street's. They have one of the best stock price predictions for the next 3 years. And so I took that and I put it in here. Now, if you guys see in 2022, we can see the total revenue almost at 2 billion, just a bit shy off that. I honestly think this year they're gonna do a lot more than 2 billion. I think maybe like 2.1, 2.2 in my opinion, because they're getting offers left and right. Europe is now seeing the potential and the benefit of having Palantir in that continent because of what's happening in Ukraine. So they're getting good business from Europe. And obviously they're getting good business in North America as well. And they're going to the commercial sector. So I think 2022 is going to be over a $2 billion revenue year, in my opinion. Now, what's interesting about simply Wall Street's prediction here is that, well, there's two things. The first thing is that from 2022 to 2024 for total revenue, they're keeping it at 30% growth rate year over year. So they're pretty keen on and very confident that every single year, at least up until 2024, they're going to be growing at a 30% rate, which is pretty good actually. The other interesting thing here is that by end of 2024, it seems like there's going to be a negative 25% in net income. Now just look at these numbers. Look at how it goes down from almost 1.2 billion negative in net income to negative 25 billion by 2024. I mean, that's crazy. They're pretty much saying by 2025, they should be able to make a profit, like a strong profit. Now the question is how much profit they're going to make in 2025. That's the hard question to answer. That's the $1 million question. But you got Curious Pejjy here to figure it out, but just note that this is all speculation, right? This is all speculation, not facts, just predicting. So let's first go ahead and figure out what the total revenue is going to be from 2025 all the way to 2030. So from 2022 to 2024, they're saying a solid 30% is a good, reliable growth rate to go forward. But let's go ahead and let's look at the previous years to see what the growth rate was. Now for the total revenue or sales, at least from 2018 to 2019, there was a 25% growth, then a 47% growth, then a 41% growth. So in general, they're growing at a 44%. And simply Wall Street is saying that they're going to be growing at a 30% year over year. So that's pretty interesting. So what I did is that from 2025, to keep things conservative, from 2025 to 2027, I said they're going to grow at 30% rate. Year over year. But then from 2028 to 2030, I bumped it up to 35%. I personally believe with the technology that Palantir has, it will become very, very important as we go into the future, because there's a lot of, I don't want to say tensions, man, but there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, look at Ukraine, look at the Russia and Ukraine war. I mean, that's one thing. Then you got the rising of China trying to take Taiwan and that little drama that's going on there, and North Korea and South Korea, and you also got like the India and Pakistan and Iran, and man, you have a lot of things going on. Alex Karp did say one time, and it was a pretty scary statement. He said that as we go forward into the future, things are going to get more chaotic, and that's scary. That's scary. But Palantir is built for these things. It's built for chaotic times, for intel, for intelligence. So these are the type of companies that will thrive if anything happens. WW3. Bruh. But knock on wood, that never happens. I really hope that never happens. Most likely it won't happen, because the way how our world is structured, and NATO and, you know, all these alliances, it's just not worth it, you know, to start something like that. So I mean, yeah, that's just some deep thoughts that I think about sometimes. But Palantir does benefit from that, as a lot of countries will take on the services, as we see now in countries in Europe, like UK deal recently. But nonetheless, by end of 2030, they should almost be reaching $18 billion in revenue, which is not bad, you know? Literally a 10x, 12x from 2021 sales, total revenue. That's actually pretty good. That's good stuff. Now, the net income. This part is a little tricky, because it's kind of hard to figure out what the percentage is going to be. Now, they do have a high gross profit, 67%, which is absolutely insane. And honestly, Palantir is going to be a money-making machine in the future. They're going to be, I mean, their software is ready. If they can get rid of some of the expenses that they have, they could make a very high profit margin, man. I would say like in the 50%. These guys can make a lot of money in total net income, raw profit. So going back like 3-4 years, trying to figure out how much they're growing by or reducing the losses, it's not really practical at this point, because again, it's all speculation. But I did say by 2025, I put a net profit or net income of 20%. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not too sure if that's going to happen in 2025. But with that, we get a net income of 854 million. But in 2026, I said that they're going to grow at a 25% rate for the net income, which would almost put it at $1.4 billion. And then in 2027, I put it at 30%, almost 2.2 billion. 2028 at a 35%, almost 3.5 billion in net income. 2029, another 35%, which would give it a 4.6 billion in net income. And then 2030, a 40% net income from its revenue, which would give it over $7 billion in net income, which is absolutely crazy. But it could be realistic, because again, Palantir, man, they already have the product ready. They just have to make sure that they become profitable, get rid of the massive expenses that they're doing, and they're just a money-making machine, man. They're gonna make boatloads of money, man, I'm telling you. But comment down below if 7 billion by 2030 makes a lot of sense for Palantir, or 40% net income from its revenue by 2030. I'm curious to know what you guys think. So we kind of roughly figured out what the total revenue and net income could be by 2030. Let's go figure out the shares outstanding, because this is important, because the more shares they have, the lower the stock price. So if they have less shares outstanding, the higher the stock price would be. So let's see what they would do. So in 2020, from 2021, they've diluted a lot, from 1.7 to over 2 billion. And you know what? I don't blame them, because I mean, the stock price went up like crazy. It went to the moon. And so insiders sold. I mean, why wouldn't they? And not to mention, these guys IPO'd in like 2020. So makes sense for them to sell shares when they go on to the stock market. Easy money, I guess. So the dilution or the share selling makes a lot of sense. But let's see what's going to happen from 2022 all the way to 2030. So with the little information that we have, because obviously they IPO'd in 2020, we can only go back so far. I put the shares outstanding in this little chart here to understand what their average dilution on a yearly basis is and quarterly basis is. And this is what we get. On a quarterly base, we get 2.6%. But on a yearly base, we get over 15%. But hold on, because there's little information here and not much history, we can't jump to conclusions. As we can see recently, in 2020, we can see a negative 7%, meaning that they bought back some shares. Palantir bought back some shares. Even, I mean, heck, even they think that the stock price has gone way too low. I mean, even they think that it's a bargain price to buy right now, that they're buying themselves. And I think as long as the stock price is low, they will continue to do more buybacks. So what I said was to keep things conservative for 2022 all the way to 2024, as long as they're not making any profit, they're going to dilute shares at a 3% yearly. Not at a 15%, but at a 3% to keep things conservative. And these are the numbers that we get. But in 2025, I have a feeling that once they become profitable, the stock price will explode one way or the other. I'll explain that once we get to the stock price. But I think once that happens, we can see another wave of insiders selling some shares, because the stock price is going to jump again. And obviously the guys who invested like 5 years ago, they will want to make some profit. They want to be able to sell some stuff and, you know, enjoy some of the profits. So I said a dilution of 10%. That's crazy, I know, but we saw that happen in 2021. But then later it gets more calm. In 2026, it's a 2% dilution. And then 2027, a 1% dilution. And then interestingly, from 2028 and onwards, in my opinion, because they're going to become a money-making machine, they're going to start doing some buybacks. From 2028 to 2030, I said they will do a buyback of 1% each year, which would give us a total shares outstanding of over 2.4 billion. Which is still a lot of shares outstanding, but it's good that from then they're going to start doing some buybacks, probably more than 1% every year, maybe 2%. Nobody knows. But most likely, if they're making this much money, buyback at a much higher scale is more likely. Price to sales ratio, we'll come back to it in a bit, but EPS follows pretty much the shares outstanding and the net income, which would give us almost $3 as an EPS by 2030. Let me know if you guys agree if $3 by 2030 makes sense for Palantir. And the PE, well, we have to first figure out what the stock price is going to be when they're going to become a profit, which we did in 2025, then figure out the PE. But first, let's go ahead and figure out what the stock price will be by end of 2022. So looking at the history of the price to sales ratio of Palantir, we can see in 2020, it reached a price to sales ratio of 45 and then 46 in 2021. Sheesh. And then now it's at 9. I mean, that's just insane. I mean, that's just cheap in my opinion. But most likely what's going to happen, in my opinion, is that the second half of this year is going to be a much more bullish year in my opinion. Now, I'm thinking maybe September or October and onwards. We could probably see a price to sales ratio of 15, which would give us a stock price of $14. Probably, maybe even not. Maybe the global situation gets worse, the macro gets worse, we can't handle inflation and everyone gets more fearful. It can go down to $5 per share. But in my opinion, I'm more optimistic, to be honest. I think $14 per share makes sense by end of 2022. In 2023, I believe that things are going to look a lot more optimistic. This war in Ukraine is going to get less, is going to be done and over with, hopefully. Inflation will be controlled, interest rates are up, things are more calm, people are less fearful. So I think giving it a price to sales ratio of 20 would make more sense for Palantir, and this would give us a stock price of 24. And in 2024, I also gave it a price to sales ratio of 20, giving it a stock price of 30. Now, there could be hype in 2024 because if they keep reducing their losses, I think people are going to get more optimistic and we can probably see price to sales ratio back to 45 back then. It could probably jump up to 67. But keeping things conservative, keeping it at 20, 30 bucks per share, I think at that time is okay. Makes more sense. Now, the PE. Figuring out the PE is always interesting because it's pretty much what people are willing to pay for the stock. And so that's what we're trying to figure out for the years from 2025 to 2030. It's going to be pretty darn interesting. Don't forget to smash that like button because it's going to get juicy, man. It's going to get flippin' juicy. Let's go. So in 2025, we could see a high PE because they just made a massive profit. Everyone is going bananas. I mean, look at Tesla, look at Shopify, look at Amazon, look at all these companies when they became profit. The PE rose so high. Tesla was at like 1800 or 1200. It was absolutely crazy. But then that was only for one quarter. Then it came back down to reality to like 300, 200. So obviously we're looking at this at a yearly basis and not at a quarterly basis. So I'm going to say a conservative PE of 200. Comment down below if 200 is too high or too low, but I'm keeping things conservative. And with a 200 PE, we get a stock price of $70. So literally double in a year in terms of stock price. You get more than double actually, which is just absolutely crazy, which would also give it a market cap of over $170 billion. Now, if you guys want to see what the stock price would be if they reach 1,000 PE, just like how the other companies did, Amazon, Tesla, well, we get about 350 bucks per share, almost $1 trillion valuation, which is just absolutely nuts. That's 100 times net income, which I don't believe will happen, to be honest. So that's why I'm saying 200 makes sense. And then in 2026, I put a PE of 150, and this would give us a stock price of 84 bucks per share with a market cap over 200 billion. 2027, I gave it a PE of 100, which would give us a stock price of 86 bucks per share, market cap over 216 billion. In 2028, I gave it a PE of 80, which would give us a stock price of 110, exceeding $250 billion in valuation, which is absolutely nuts. In 2029, I gave it a PE of 65, which would give us a stock price of 122, almost reaching 300 billion in market cap, which is insane, man. That's just crazy. And then by 2030, with a PE of 50, and I do believe by 2030, Palantir could be trading at 50 PE, because probably more actually, because they are going to be growing big time. They are a cash machine. So I think people will have high expectations of Palantir going into 2030, which I believe in 2030 is the year for Palantir. And this will give us a stock price of 146 bucks per share with a market cap of 355 billion bucks. Well, that's not bad. Now, in my humble opinion, by 2030, a stock price of 146 bucks with the total revenue and net income of what it has is realistic. I think that's a fair value for Palantir by 2030. But again, if they do net income of 7 billion. And as you guys can see here, here's a stock chart of Palantir. As you guys can see, 2022. By end of this year, 14 bucks. But by 2030, I mean, sheesh, 146 bucks per share. Now, obviously, the stock price never increases like that incrementally every single year. Maybe by 2027, there's going to be another major crash. Who knows? Might bring down the stock back to 30. But then fundamentally, man, 146 bucks per share, if they do the net income of 7 billion and total revenue of almost 18 billion, I think it's fair. It's a good price. But again, who really knows? Maybe we'll have the best bull market from 2023 all the way to 2030, maybe 2032 before something else happens. Because don't forget, we are going to go into a recession. This year is a pretty bad, rough year. And I think the market has priced in a lot of the bad stuff already. They're getting ready for it. Although I do think there's more downside coming ahead. But I think from October and onwards, man, I think things are going to look much, much better. Second half of this year at least. But I have to stress one more time, guys, this is only a prediction, not facts. Maybe Palantir will never make a profit. They'll always be at a loss. They'll never make a net income. Or maybe they'll go bankrupt and that's it. But highly unlikely, extremely highly unlikely for that to happen. Just know this is only a prediction and just to get an idea what could happen and not will. Now, personally, for me, I used to hold Palantir shares, but I sold them all at a loss because to buy more Tesla. I mean, I never thought Tesla would go into 600s, and I had to seize the opportunity, man. I mean, if you guys had followed me for some time, you guys know I'm going all into Tesla, and now I'm going even more all into Tesla. And the reason why I'm going all into Tesla is because I understand the business model. I understand what they're doing, and I'm very, very passionate and strong in believing what they're doing. Not just the EV. I mean, EV is cool and all, but climate change, renewable energy, that's what I mean, before putting everything into Tesla at this point, I had a lot of renewable energy stocks in my portfolio. And although they've blessed me in a way, no one and no other stock has blessed me like how Tesla has. And I have a lot of Tesla predictions onto this channel. I mean, I even have a playlist of it. You guys can go ahead and check it out. But they're literally changing the world for the better. I mean, this thing doesn't affect one country or another country. It affects the whole globe. Transitioning to sustainable energy, which is Tesla's mission, by the way, is very important. Because imagine a world that we have sustainable energy. We don't have to depend on another nation for energy, like how, I mean, the Ukraine war kind of shed a lot of light onto that. If you look at Europe, Russia has got them all by the balls saying that, hey man, if you guys don't pay me in my currency, I'm going to shut everything off you and you guys are going to enjoy sky high inflation, probably go into a recession, at a heavy recession. And guess what? In the winter, you're all going to freeze to death. So if we have sustainable energy and majority of it was supplied by sustainable energy, they don't need no Russian oil or Russian gas or anything from anyone. They just need the sun and the wind. And not only that, you're promoting clean energy. You're doing great for Mother Earth. So it's a win-win for everybody. And Tesla is planning to do this. And I'm all for it, man. I love the statement. I love it. And I buy as much as I can now. Going back to Palantir, I know this turned into a Tesla video, but going back to Palantir, personally for me, I still don't fully understand about Palantir. I understand they're a software company, intelligence company for governments, and now they're doing it for the commercial section, and they are extremely unique with their software and their analytics and all that kind of good stuff, technologies. But at the end of the day, I just don't see how that could change the whole world like how Tesla is, or like how Microsoft did, or like Apple did. I just don't see it. And although Palantir has a very bright future, an extremely bright future, I just can't invest into something long-term if I don't understand the products, if I don't understand how they do things. That's just my personal view, and I may make a big mistake by not pointing a little bit into Palantir now. But those of you guys who do understand it and you guys are going all in into Palantir, well, you're gonna have a great time by 2030, man. Even in the 2030s, because I think Palantir's time is in the 2030s. I think they're gonna be the headline of the decade in 2030s. But now the question is it a good time to buy Palantir right now? Well, looking at the chart right here, $9 per share. It's a bargain in my opinion, man. If they break even by 2024 and if they make a profit by 2025, looking back at this price now, you're gonna be kicking yourself in the buttocks why you didn't buy some shares. And by looking at this chart, you could see, man, I mean, I'm predicting by end of this year, end of 2022, $14 per share, and then it should be going up from there. Because Palantir, with their massive gross profit of 67%, 62%, whatever the 60, it was in the 60%, man. That's insane gross profit. That's like Microsoft's. That's like Microsoft's gross profit. I mean, that's huge. So if you guys are trying to invest for the next 10 years and you guys believe in Palantir's mission, vision, and their products, I think it's a fantastic time to get in, man. I think it's honestly a good time to like buy and hold until 2030. Buy, forget your password of your brokerage account. Okay, don't forget your password, but lock it up in a way where you come back by 2030 and you can enjoy the gains there. I think if you do that and you stay away from the FUD of Palantir, I think you're gonna do extremely well. But again, guys, that's my opinion, not financial advice. Do your DD, do more research, and make your own conclusions. So this is Palantir's 2030 stock price prediction. Check out Tesla's 2030 stock price prediction, the updated version. It's more realistic. I think a lot of Tesla bulls will hate me for it, but I'm trying to look at it at the most conservative way possible. Check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, guys, and I shall see you guys in the next video. See ya.